Hi everyone, I'm Cynthia for Artbeads Cafe, and Cheri
Hi,
is
Cynthia.
with me. Hi, we're
Hi.
so happy to be live today for Artbeads Cafe because we really love communicating with you, and today is a special seed bead.
Yay.
Right, so we had a question. Someone asked, "What do I need to start seed beading?" And that's a really good question because it can be very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things out there, so many beads. So we wanted to show you a little what you need, what kind of beads, and then we want also to show you one of the first stitch that a lot of people do at the beginning is the peyote stitch. And the peyote stitch is pretty easy to do. So we're going to show you how to do this.
Veronica says, "Good morning, ladies," and Catherine says, "Hi."
Good morning.
Good morning.
And the voice that you just heard is Becky, and she had a little problem with her throat.
She's getting better.
Yes. And she will read your comments and your questions, so don't hesitate to ask questions. But Cheri, let's start with our seed bead blend. So one thing that we love doing here at Artbeads is doing special blends.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how difficult it is to choose colors when you want to do a project. So those blends are great because we choose the colors already for you, and you just have to grab a tube like this one, and then you can start a project.
Start, right.
So those are our new blends, and we have them in 11 arts and then 8 arts.
Mm-hmm.
And Cheri, you created some beautiful blends here. I
Aren't
just
they pretty?
love
So these are
those.
more tone on tone.
Right.
I love that because then you can add your pop of color to
Right.
it. But I also like mixing them. And so
You do.
I like that as a base, a starting point.
Right.
You still have some differences, which is fun
Uh-huh.
to work with, and then add your color.
Yeah, so here, that you did on this bracelet, right?
Right. So this bracelet is this tube and this one, and I just mixed them up, and I used all the different colors that are in there, and turned it into a stripe, and I just love the way those two colors combined.
That's so beautiful. And this bracelet, is it just
Yeah,
one
this is
tube?
just one tube,
Okay.
and you can see the subtle differences in that. This is a
Yes.
herringbone bracelet, and that was made with this tube.
So you put a mermaid. Yeah, it does look like the
isn't it too pretty?
the sea and the
Little
different
mermaid,
colors.
yeah, with her pearls, and I love that.
Cute.
This is a project I started, but I haven't
Mhm.
finished it yet. And this one I mixed two of your blends.
Right.
I used this. Let's see, where is it? Yes,
This
this
one?
lighter one. Yeah,
That is beautiful.
Isn't
I
that
love this
pretty?
one.
With the darker one.
The one here, yes.
And
Such
then
a good idea.
I just poured a little of each out, and
Uh-huh.
then just mixed it up. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, this is so pretty.
I love how you did the
Yeah.
strap like that. It's such a great
They're
idea.
kind of random stripes. They're
Yes.
each a little different length and staggered. So it's kind of a free form. You can kind of do that without a pattern. You just kind of have to keep in mind your placement now and then.
Right.
But otherwise, really easy to do.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Beside this, there are three projects that I made here with this really beautiful blend, kind of a green and purple and some of a bright pink. And I love that ring also that I made.
I do too. It's such a pretty.
Love those
such
colors.
pretty colors.
Yes. And then two projects here with the same blend. I'm sorry. Here you have a one of your blend, Cheri,
Mm-hmm.
and arts
The 8
like this one, and I did a flat spiral. I love this technique, so I use it a lot. And here I did a peyote stitch with that blend that I really, really love. And in the middle, you can see some Swarovski 2mm beads. They fit perfectly.
Oh,
I
isn't
was
that
so
pretty?
happy. You know, when you try a pattern and then
Right.
yeah, you don't know if
Yeah.
it's gonna work, and like it's like, yeah, it's
Yeah, it
working. I was
worked.
so happy.
But I like that it's just slightly different. They really pop out.
Yes.
The shape is just a little rounder, and they're just show up so well that way.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I had to make a ring that goes with, of course, because I love making those rings. And then the other blend that I love is this one. Has some bronze and blues and white, and I made a ring also.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I had to. And then I just experimented here, and this is the square here, and then I use it with tile beads. I thought that works really great with those colors
beautiful.
too. That's beautiful. So those are our new seed bead blend. You can check on our website, artbeads.com. We have so many other blends, and they're really, really fun to work with. And now let's talk about what do we need when we start seed bead.
Right.
So maybe let's start with needles.
Needles and thread.
Okay.
Definitely. There's so many different. So I'm going to jump to thread.
Okay.
There's so many different kinds of threads to use. It's hard to know what should I be using.
Yes.
And some of it is just personal taste. You know what you prefer. But there's basically two different kinds. There's the polyester type thread. That is polyester the right word?
Sure.
They're synthetic.
Okay.
And these are sturdier. These are beading threads.
Okay.
They're different from sewing threads. They're sturdier. And they come in a variety of brands and colors. I'll start over here with the Miyuki beading thread, and there's all different colors of Miyuki, and these beautiful Hana beading thread, and the colors of these in particular, they're super vibrant.
Okay.
I just love their colors. KO, again, just a great all-around beading thread, lots of different colors to choose from. 1G, same thing, great quality all-around thread, lots of different colors. This is the large spool, and then this is the small spool. And
You have a question?
Jonathan wants to know if you can use the beading thread with a loom.
yes.
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah. I use
Yes.
beading thread quite a bit when I do loom weaving, and it works really well. Excuse me. Cynthia, do you want to show how to open?
Yes, so I do use the 1G a lot because the colors match a lot of the Toho seed bead, and I love this thread. So you open, I love that you can keep it in the spool, so you have some, how do you call that?
Like a little notch or
In a
groove.
notch here, so I'm gonna put the thread in there, and then I put it back, and there is another notch here, and I can push, and then you just keep your thread like that.
Nice.
So your thread stay inside, it doesn't get dirty, especially if you have animals. We all have animals that like to be on our bead, and it's easy to storage.
Yeah.
Maureen's asking which thread has the least stretch.
I'd say they're all pretty similar. These
think
particular
so.
brands are all very similar.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them have a large amount of stretch. They all have some.
Right.
And you can use conditioners as well to condition the threads. But they're all going to stretch a little.
Right. And we do both use a different brand, and it's all because of the colors.
Pretty much, yeah. I choose by color.
Yes.
which spool is going to give me the best color.
Exactly.
Because they are really all great threads.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
why do we say by colors? Because sometimes we want the thread, a lot of time we want the thread to not show, so we want to be hidden. But sometimes you do want the thread to show, especially on those rings. At the edge of it, it's nice to see some thread.
Pop a color.
So it really depends the beads that you use and if you want to show it or not. But we pretty much have a stock of all of these because it gives us a variety of colors,
Exactly.
and that's really great. Yes.
Exactly.
So let's go to the needles.
So
now.
needles come in a variety of sizes. First of all, long and short. So this is an example of a long needle size next to what they call sharps, which are quite short. Some shorts aren't quite as short as these. These are the shortest shorts. So short shorts. And the next thing that you want to do is choose your eye size.
Yes.
And so the higher the number, the smaller the eye. And so I think one of the highest numbers is like a 15 or something, a really super fine eye.
Let me point out, so when we talk about numbers, it's here. You always see, you will have a size. So this is a size 12.
This is a variety pack, and this has 10, 11, 12, and 13. And I'm going to say that's the range that we tend to work in the most.
Yes.
I know you use 12s.
I use 12 all the time. I don't know why.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I use 11s. I think maybe because the eye is just a little bigger. And an 11 will pretty much go through any small bead unless you need many thread paths through.
Pam wants to know what decides if you use a sharp or a long.
I think that's a personal preference too. For I tend to use longs. That's my go-to size. Do you too, Cynthia?
I do, because when you use a long one, then you can go through several beads. The only thing is when you finish your work and sometimes you have a small thread, and I cannot go back to the beads because my needle is bigger than my thread, so then I switch to a shorter one. But I do prefer the long ones too. Sometimes you have to go through beads, and if you have a short one, you're limited of the flexibility.
Yes, exactly.
And one thing is when you have a very thin needle, it will bend after a while. Don't worry about it. This is normal. They do bend.
Some of us bend our needles more than others. Mine end up looking like corkscrews by the time I'm done. Then sometimes one project, I don't know, really tight grip or something.
Right. But those, the hard ones, they don't bend that easily.
Yeah, these are a couple different ones. This is a bead lawn, and it comes in a pack of quite a few, which is nice. And it does come with a threader. However, with a lot of these finer eyes and the slightly heavier beading thread, these threaders aren't always usable like they are in sewing. Sewing, you can almost always use a threader and get the thread through the needle you want. Beading, it's a little trickier. So I don't rely on those so much, but they're really handy for, I use them for other things.
So yes, so then what is the difference between a harder needle than a normal one? On those, it depends also of your project. Like for example, on our last video, I was showing how to do a freeform breast stitch, and because of the different size of my my seed beads, and I was using some bugle beads also, I use a hard needle. But usually when I do a peyote stitch or another type, I like to have softer needle. So it really depends for your work also.
Elka is asking, is the needle size related to the seed bead size?
Not really.
I think we've got some information somewhere about that.
Right. Well, the thing is also you have to, if you use a very, very small bead and you know you're going to go through that bead several times, then you want your needle to be thin. Don't use a needle that is too big, because then you won't be able to go through that seed bead. But a lot of time, like after a while working with the needle, we have a preference. Like I use a 12 all the time, and Cheri uses an 11. So you just have to start with the 11, because
that's a good start.
The eye is bigger, or a 10, and then if you want thinner, then you can go to a 12.
And that's why I like that little variety pack, because it gives you 4 different sizes from a pretty fine up to a size 10, and then you can see which size you like or end up using the most. But I at least use 2 sizes pretty regularly. 11 isn't fine enough for some things. So,
Beverly loves your scarf, Cynthia.
Oh,
I know, so
thank
pretty.
you. I have a bunch like that. I love them.
So pretty. And this is another needle. These are the Tulip brand needles, and they come in this wonderful little container with the cork. And these again are just really great quality needles. They come in the same ranges of short, long, and eye sizes.
And I have to say, I love
this is your go-to needle.
It is my to-go, and I love the fact they are in those little jars. It is so cute, because when you use needle as many as we use, then you end up with needles everywhere. And what I love in the tube, you can put back the needle in the tube very easily, and then you still have the number here of your needle, so you know exactly which needle you picked up. Because I used to have needles and I pick them somewhere, and then I'm like, okay, I don't remember which size is this one or this one. And it's really, I really love that tulip needles. I use them a lot.
Those are good. And then we also have Fireline,
Right.
and that's a great stringing material. Of course, very popular. A lot of people use this type of material. It's like a monofilament. Is that the right word?
Yes.
And very strong. They come in a couple different colors, the white or clear, and then dark. So you want to choose best for your bead colors that you're working with. And they're, I would say, a little stiffer.
Yes.
So the body of your work, when you're done, your bracelet will be just a little stiffer and tighter if you use that type of stringing material or beading thread compared to a more thread type.
Right.
Leslie's asking about can you use a big eye needle?
For stitching, you could. You're not going to be able to get it through fine beads, and it's not ideal. It's not ideal for stitching with.
Right.
Yeah, it's meant for getting thread into awkward places.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ends aren't as pointy, and there's even kind of a catch point on the big eye needles, I think, that aren't ideal for stitching with, but very useful for all kinds of things. We use them a lot for a lot of different things.
Carrie's asking, will there be a recording to view later?
Yes. Yeah. This gets on, well, you tell them. Where does this go after? This goes to...
It will be on our Facebook page right after, and we'll put it on our YouTube page and on our website.
Yes.
So you'll find it.
There we
So
go.
you find the video and you can watch it over and over and over if you miss something. No problem at all. So we talk about the Fireline, and now let's talk about scissors. And this is what we call a thread burner. This is such a great tool. So you have a little tip at the end, and when you press this button, it gets really, really warm, and then it burns your thread. It's really hot. Yeah, be careful. And why we love this tool is because you can come really close to your bead and burn the thread. It won't burn your bead, but it will burn the thread, and you cannot see anything. I use that quite a lot. But we have also scissors that we use a lot. I love those. First, they're really cute. Look at how cute they are.
They really are pretty little scissors.
And I love how pointy they are. And again, I can go very close to my bead to be able to cut the thread.
Yeah.
But you like those big
I
ones.
use just plain old sewing scissors, big old sewing scissors. And the reason is they're just fast to pick up. I was calling it quick draw. They're just easy to pick up. Done, right? Set it down, I'm there. Compared to, a smaller one, I have to kind of fuss with, get my fingers just in the right place, and then I can't quite get it off. I mean, these are great for getting in tiny little places, but for every day, I just love these. And you can get right up to a thread.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see if I've got a tail here. I don't want to cut it, but I just get it under right there and just snip.
Okay.
And so you can get very close. It's getting into tiny little places that is harder, but you can get it nice and close. So that's my go-to.
I use those quite a lot. I just love them. Yes, so make sure also that your scissors are very sharp because you really want to make clean cuts of your thread. And now let's talk about beads in general. So I have here different kind of beads that I want to show you very quickly. Here, those are called cube beads. So you have different sizes. Like this one is a 1 millimeters, a 3 millimeters, and a 4. And then here you have a Toho seed beads. So those are 15. So we say 15 odd. So the bigger the number in the bead size, the smaller is the bead. And this one is really, really small. 15 is really, really small, but we do use that also once in a while. And then we have here the Aiko beads. Aiko are some of my favorite, but no, they are my favorite. So the Toho Aiko, the reason is because they are perfect, which means that when you work with them, every single bead is perfect. There was no no difference in the sizes, and then your piece looks straight and everything looks perfect. So when I work with a lot of detail in my pattern, I love going and grab my Aiko. And then you have the treasures. The treasures also are beautiful. They're also straight, and so many different colors, and those are the two that I go to very quickly. Especially when I do my rings, it's treasures or Aiko. So then you have the rounds. So those, you see the different, those are little square, those are round. So that's the brown Toho. This is a 11 art. This is a 8 art. And then you have the big one called the 6 art. And here we have some small 11 art, but the hole is 15% larger than the normal ones. So that can be very useful if you know that you're gonna go through your beads over and over. So those are very good too. Then we have here some Delica beads, and those are a little square also. And here I have a 11 art, a 8 art, and here a 15. Again, look at how small they are.
They're gorgeous. So yeah.
They're really beautiful. And then you have bugle beads, and bugle beads come in different size too, and they even come in twisted. Those are really, really great. So what can you do with beads? Well, we have a lot of patterns, a lot of jewelry in front of us, and I want to show you here different sizes. So those are made with the Delica 11 art. This is a 8 art. You see the difference, how big it is. This is a I think it's an Aiko. Yes, this is an Aiko, very straight, and this is with treasures. And all of these are peyote stitch. So this is the stitch that we're going to show you. Those two also are made with peyote stitch, but look how it changed when you have different size of bead. So that's something that you can do too. And then Becky is gonna go through all those bracelets. Those are all peyote, different type of different pattern. What is fun also with peyote is that you can decorate the band. I decorate here with the Tyler beads and the Super Uno. Here we got some daggers. Cheri, you put some Swarovski pearl.
Put some pearls in the center of this one, and then this is a 2-drop peyote,
right.
Which means you add 2 beads on your thread at a time, which goes a little faster. And this is a 3-drop peyote. So peyote, there are a lot of techniques to grow into. To start with the basic single bead stitch, and then move on to 2 and 3, and then combining them with other beads and trimming them in different ways. And like you showed with changing bead sizes up, and so many possibilities.
Peyote stitch is such a fun stitch to work with, and you can do so many different patterns, and I use them to do my rings also. And by the way, talking about rings, the next Artbeads Cafe Live, I will show you how to make my rings. And Becky will post some reminder on our Facebook page, and you will see what kind of ring we can make. So, but now let me show you how to do peyote stitch. So you have 2 ways of doing this, and I'm gonna let Becky going around me like that. She can be above me and you can see it clearly. So in peyote stitch you have the odd count and the even count. What does that mean? That means that you start with an even number of beads, or you start with a odd number of beads, and there is a little trick to do at the end of the row. So I'm going to show you first an even count. So I'm going to grab here those beads. Those are 6 odd. They're very big for you to see easily. So I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 here. Yes. And I have my bead stopper at the end here. And then to make things easier, I'm going to grab a red bead. So what you do at the beginning, So you have one bead here, so you're going to skip that bead and you're going to go through the second bead, okay? And then it's going to form a T like that. So when you work with very small bead, the T doesn't come right away, so you're going to have to fuss it with your fingers and make it in place. So I'm going to grab another bead.
So basically that bead is stacking on top of
yes,
the other bead.
It is, yes. And then you want to bring some tension. So I do it again. I've got one bead here, so I'm going to skip a bead and I'm going to go through the next one. And the beads are starting to stack on each other. So I have two beads left. So I grab a bead, I skip that bead, and I'm going to go through the next one. So this is, you made 2 rows here. So now, and my thread is turning, so I'm going to turn my work. Let's see. There we go. Make sure you have tension also, so I like to hold my thread and tight. So you see now you have holes here inside those beads, so you're going to fill those holes here, and the first one is right at the top.
God, this thing is freaking out.
Okay. Okay, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, we have some technical issue with the camera. So I'm gonna grab this time a brown bead for you to see better, and I want it to be on top of the first bead here. And remember, this is a even count peyote stitch. So I'm just go through the first red bead here. Now I want to put another bead on this other gap, so I'm just go through the red bead and tight. I like to tie up, and I'm gonna go through the next bead here. Okay, and what I like to do, because it's easier for me, but I will turn my work because I like to work from top to bottom, but you could do from bottom to top too. So I'm just turning my work, and again, so I have to place a bead here. So I'm going to go back to the blue one, and I'm going to go through the brown bead. Okay, I want to put my work down like that, you can see better, and you see you have those gaps here, so I'm just filling up those gaps. So this is why peyote stitch is so easy, because you know exactly where to go. So you keep going. Oops, I lost my thread. There we go. So you keep going this way like that. Now I want to show you how to do a even count, odd count, because it's a little different. So let's see. This is the tricky part, is how to thread your needle. How to put your thread on the needle. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bead. I like to put my bead stopper, and I'm going to do exactly the same at the beginning, which means I'm going to skip the first bead and go to the second one. So at the beginning you do exactly the same, and those bead is stacking. I'm grabbing another bead and I'm skipping the first bead and I'm going to the second one. And now, as you can see, I have one bead left. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna go through that bead, and then I make sure that everything is tight, and then I need to add another bead. So to do so you you have your bead, you go through, you go back down the second bead here. Okay, so let me show you. So you've got your 2 bead here. I'm going to go down this bead, and now you see how my thread is here, and I need to put a bead on that, in that gap, so I need to go back up. So I'm gonna go, so my thread is coming out of that middle bead. I'm gonna go up, sorry, down, let's see, let's go down the red bead, and then I'm gonna go up those 2 blue bead. Okay, and then I'm gonna go up that blue bead too. So and then I'm going down to the red bead. So now I am ready.
I'm gonna come back this
way to add.
It's like
okay. Oops.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, we have some trouble today.
There, okay.
Okay. So now I am ready to add my bead. So I'm gonna grab a brown bead, and then another one.
Marsh was asking, what is the reason for doing odd count versus even count in peyote?
So to do, let's see. So I'm grabbing my ring here. So to do a pattern like that, where you have a triangle, you need an even count. Sorry, an odd count. Sorry. Why? Is because you need a bead in the middle here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I have a middle bead here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it allows you a symmetrical pattern going down the length of the bracelet, or it puts a bead in the center row. If you have even beads, it puts a seam down the middle.
Right.
So it just depends on the pattern that you're doing as to what you want.
Yes. So for doing patterns like that, you need a odd count peyote. So where was I? So I'm here down to my red bead, and like I said before, I like to go flip my work, and then I'm gonna start again. So I just need to add a bead here, and I'm gonna add another bead here. But now you can see I have 2 beads here instead of 1, and this is the difference with an odd count. So I'm gonna go through the 2 beads, and then what I like to do again, when Cheri does it differently, but I like to do is to flip my work, and I need to add 1 bead. So we're gonna do like we did before. So I'm adding my bead, and I'm gonna go through that brown bead here. But like before, I need to go back to that bead to be able to add a bead here. So I'm just gonna work my way to that place. So I'm gonna go, so my thread is going out of the brown bead. I'm gonna go to up to the blue bead, the red bead, and then the brown bead. So now I'm ready to add another bead. So I'm just gonna grab some red like that, you can see better. And I'm gonna do a couple of more rows like that, you can see again. So you see the gap. Here I have only 1 bead, so it's easy. I'm just gonna put my thread. My bead is stacking. I'm gonna turn my work. And here I just place my bead. So right now there's nothing too complicated, but here again I've got 2 beads. Let me grab a blue one to see better. So I'm going to go through those 2 beads, and I like to turn my work. So now I pick up a bead. I'm going to go through the red bead, and I have my bead here, but I need to place my thread back to inside that bead. So I'm gonna go through the brown bead here, and then the other brown bead, and then going back to the blue, and then I can put again another bead. So that's what you do when you work with a odd count number of beads. So it's not super difficult. It's just to remember that you have to place your bead and make sure that your thread come out of the bead, so you have to go through those beads again.
Yeah, just that little extra exchange
It's
on
just
that one side.
yes, it's just a little more step, but when you master the odd count, then you can do so many patterns also, and they're very great.
Exactly.
But Cheri has a trick also.
I do. I have a tool. So I remember when I was learning, I tried doing peyote stitch. It might have been tubular peyote. A long time ago was my first attempt. And I really struggled to get the beads exactly where they were supposed to be.
Right.
And having not done it before, you kind of don't know what it's supposed to look like, right? So I kind of wished I'd had this to start with. So this is Quick Start Peyote, and basically these are cards that you use. You fold them and you stitch your first few rows, and this card holds the beads for you. This comes with really good instruction. It comes with different bead sizes. This is for this is an assortment size, so it's good for 15-aught, 11-aught, 8-aught, and 6-aught beads. And you get, I think it's 2 of each size in these cards. And the cards are a really nice, sturdy, laminated material, so they hold up really well. You can use them over and over again. Eventually they'll wear down,
Right.
and you're going to move on to new cards, but they really do hold up well.
You can use it more than once, so that's great.
Exactly. And so let me show you in here, really great instructions. Shows you how to get started with the card and where to put the thread, but I'm going to show you that too. Works you through even count and then odd count peyote, just like Cynthia did, and then shows you how you can put 2 cards together to make one bigger card if you want to make something longer than what that section allows in one card. So really great. This is the 3-pack of the 8-aught, and then we have the 3-pack of the 11-aught, and the 15-aught, and then the multi-pack. And so if you know what you work with all the time is 11-aught beads, then the 11-aught is going to be a great pack for you to start with, and that works for both delica or cylinder type beads and round seed beads. The only thing is that the assortment pack is the only one that has a size for the 8-aught round or seed bead. It doesn't come individually. So if that's a bead size that you work with a lot, then the multi-pack is the one that you're going to go with, and you get 2 cards of each size in that pack.
Kelly has a question. What do you do when a bead breaks in the middle of your completed peyote bracelet? How do you repair it?
So it's mendable. What I do is, of course, they tell you not to break beads out of something because you risk breaking your thread. But in your case, the bead has broken, right? And it might not be completely off the thread, so you want to break it off completely and get it out of there. But now the problem is that you've likely still have thread running across that whole space. And that's going to be in the way of the new bead that you want to put in its place. So before you, and some people may not recommend snipping that thread, but I like to. But before you do that, you weave a new thread into the body of your, let me pick something up here and show you. So let's say a bead has broken in here. I'm going to weave a new thread in to my body, just like you were starting a new thread for any other reason, and weave it around and through those surrounding beads around that hole and get all those beads secure.
Right.
Then you can go in and snip that thread, and then you can place that bead into the hole and weave it into place and then tie it off.
Right.
And you can do that if you've got, rows missing. You just need to secure what's left first.
Yes, because when you're gonna cut the thread, everything
will fall apart.
apart. So secure all the beads around first.
Yeah, and that comes with mending even things you didn't make. So you don't know exactly how things are threaded. Just weave through nice and secure, maybe an area of an inch or so even. You can even go through the rows.
Right.
And that nobody likes to really do that kind of beading. Oh, it's broken and now I have to do it again. But so good to know how to be able to do that, because it might be your favorite piece, and then you can wear it again. So I'm going to show you why you might want to use the Quick Start Peyote and really how easy it is. Put my
I'm going to give you this
thank you.
easier.
Okay, put my glasses on so I can see. And I've got some things kind of started here. Oh, of course, without a needle. So, let's get, no, it's a 12.
You had
Oh, I pulled it out of my needle. There we go. Thank you, Becky. I've got a stopper bead on. Cynthia uses the little bead stoppers, and they both are great for beading projects.
Yeah, the bead stopper that I use is the small size, and it works perfectly for seed beading.
Okay, so thread's ready. I've got my stopper bead on, and here's my quick start card. This is for the 8/0 seed bead, which has a little, more rounded than a Delica style or a cylinder style bead. So you fold the card in half, and then that offers you these little notches, and this is where you're going to line up the beads. And so to get started, you're going to put the needle from the inside. I'm going in between the fold and out this hole, this little hole that's on the side. And I'm going to pull my stopper bead. So I don't know if you can see, but my little stopper bead is now in between the fold there. And I'm going to hang on to that. And then there's another little hole right here on the top edge. You're going to go down into that hole, and you're going, and you're going to come out the first bead or notch for the beads. So now your thread is ready. And let's grab some beads. And then you're going to pick up a thread. A bead, sorry. You can see I've got.
Hi everyone, we are back. We had some issue. We were filming live on Facebook, and then suddenly the video cut off. So we decided to grab our big cameras and finishing the video, because Cheri has some really good things to show us. So Cheri, you were talking about the Quick Start Peyote, right?
Quick Start Peyote. So I'm going to show you how to get started. This is what the little card looks like when it comes out of the package. This one happens to be for the size 8 seed bead. And what you do is fold it. And it folds really easily, pretty much where it needs to because of this perforation. But basically you want these edges to line up. So card is folded. Then I have a thread with my needle on it and a stopper bead. I've got just a little bead as a stopper, but you can use the other types of stopper beads too if you prefer. And what you're going to do is you're going to go inside the fold and come out this small hole near the edge of the card, and you're going to pull your stopper bead up into place so it sits sandwiched right inside that fold. Then
there's a tiny little hole right here, if you can see that. These are notches for the beads, but this is a separate little hole for the thread. You're going to go down through that hole and out the very first notch. Like that. So you've got your thread exiting out your first bead hole. So now I'm going to pick up a bead, and I'm going to pull this thread down in front so I can control it. I don't want to get tangled up with my needle. And now I'm going to go back out, well actually into the same hole that my thread is coming out of, and then out the space next to it. And this is going to put my first bead in place in the notch. So it holds it so nicely. And then second bead you're going to pick up. Thread is coming out of the second hole. I'm going to go back in the hole and then out the next one. And then you're just going to continue. I'm going to do an even count with this. And then I can show you the transition that you make at the end, because it's a little different than if you're doing it the freehand way. Get a couple more beads on here. And so you might wonder, well, how do I know if I'm at an odd number or an even number? I mean, I've got 4 beads here. That looks even.
Right. I would think so.
But you're also counting the spaces, because those would be beads too, or will be as you get further. So you can count, if you're not sure, from this first bead, and then counting beads and spaces. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the 7th bead, which means this space is going to be number 8, which is even. So I'm going to flip my card over, and I'm going to pick up the next. Let's do a different, I'll pick a different type so we can see it change. How about shiny? And now I want my bead to be stacking on this little space here, and so I'm just going through that first bead. And I like to pull it down. There we go. So you can see this is very much like what Cynthia had originally. We've just stacked that first bead. She had hers stacked on top of a bead. I have mine stacked on top of this little space here.
Right.
And then you just continue catching the beads to get your second row in. When you do it the freehand way, you're building that first. You thread all those beads on first.
Right.
Oops. And in this case, you're threading every other bead to get those beads in, but otherwise stitching it exactly the same. And then when you get to the end, the transition is identical to doing it like you did with the even count. So I'll stop with that there. And then what you want to do, I have one here where I've done 4 rows. So you can see how it built up. I've got green, and then the row of silver, and then the green, and then the matte silver. And so at about 3 to 4 rows is when you can remove it from the card. And it's super easy. I mean, you could leave the card on there and do the whole bracelet if you wanted to. Okay. It's not going to hurt anything unless it's in your way. But you just open up the card to the back side. And what you want to do is remove your stopper bead. And I always put 2 threads on just because I like it secure. So I'm going to just take those threads out. So now my stopper bead is off. And you can see this thread running through these beads. That's what's keeping it on the card. And so you just simply want to remove it. So you can just go back a few beads and pull your thread out. and then it just falls right off the card.
That's amazing.
And there's your work. So here's your tail end.
That's the second
And
time you're
here's-
showing that to me, and I'm still surprised and amazed how easy it is.
How easy that is,
Yes.
right? And now here's this would be your needle end, and then you're just ready to add the next row.
Okay.
So that's that. But I want to show you what you do for the odd count
Right.
on this very first row, because it's a little bit different than the even count. So I have my beads. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is bead 7. I don't want to put an 8th bead here because
Right.
I want an odd number, but my thread is still coming out of this hole over here. So flip the card over, and this is all you do is just ignore that space, oops, and pull your thread through that first bead. So you can see the thread is right here on the outside of this notch,
Okay.
and then through that first bead, and then you're going to stitch just like you would normally.
So what's gonna happen to that thread that's showing?
So when you pull the work off the stopper thread and off this will be your end. This is just
Okay,
simply
okay.
the end of
I
your
see.
thread.
Okay.
So it doesn't get left there,
Right.
and then you just stitch as you would,
Mhm.
and do that same when you get to your odd end. You have to do your little fancy stitching
Right.
to do your odd count peyote, but that's the only difference there. So really easy.
Yes.
And then I wanted to show you, this is just a really good reason for getting
Oh my gosh,
this quick start peyote. These are 15-aught little red seed beads. You can see how tiny they are, and when they're that little and you're starting those first couple rows, it can be so difficult to handle. And so I love the quick start for getting started with really fine beads, even the
Yes.
11s. I really do like that. I learned the way you do it. In fact, you
Right.
taught me, and that's how I do it the old-fashioned way. But when I was starting, I wished I'd had this, so especially for fine.
Right.
And I want to show you another something. So this is another good reason to use the quick start peyote. I don't know if you can see through this tape very well, but what I have on my thread is basically this pattern. I've got my stopper bead. This is done the way Cynthia would do it, and I've added this row and then come back and added these beads. So you've got that T like
Right.
you created, and then your single bead down here. And that's great, but when you're holding that in your hands, it's really easy for these to twist around. And now you've got to add your second row or your next row of beads on there. And if your bead has twisted so that now, let's say this is green and this is brown, but the thread twisted right here, now your brown is down here and your green is up here and you don't notice it,
Right.
and then you go to stitch, then your pattern is off. And even if you have noticed it, it's just cumbersome
It is.
to get that all straightened out. So this is another good reason for starting with the quick start peyote, to do anything that's patterned, especially on that starting edge. There's one little thing though that I want to point out. We both stitch the old-fashioned way, and we create our patterns going up, and we show a stopper bead off on this side, and we start with this up bead, and then you add these beads, and then you add that second bead to make that T,
Right.
and then you add these beads. But with quick start peyote, and I can show you on this card, you are starting, so if you're looking at this pattern, you're actually starting with this bead over here, which is this bead, and that's a down bead. And so that's fine. You can continue working that way and do, create whatever you want that way. But what if you're trying to follow a pattern, for example, one of ours, where we've shown you the thread path. Let's say we do something fancy and tricky up here with our thread. And you want to follow our thread path, but now you're finding that you're going in exactly the opposite direction. What you can do is just get your start. So you've started like you would with the quick start peyote, and you've got 3 or 4 rows on. Then just simply pick this thread up and move that thread, weave it through your beads so that it's coming out over here. So then you're starting like you would if you had started the other way.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
pretty easy to
very
correct that.
easy to correct it. You can even move your stopper bead. I like to know where my stopper bead is. I
Okay.
use that as a guide so I know which side I'm on,
Right.
especially if you're doing odd count. And if you're used to having that stopper bead to one side, you can even move your tail end over to the other side
Right.
if you want
Okay.
that as a marker. So yeah, lots of, it's still very easy and helpful to
Right.
use that to get started. And then one more thing about this is, what if you want to make something that's wider than what this card offers? You can join cards together. And so I've drawn on here, what you want to do is you want to cut this piece off. So I've drawn a little arrow to show that we're at this very first notch, which is where your normal first bead would go. And then you're going to draw a line down, and you're just going to snip that like this and just cut that strip off so it looks like that. So now that first notch is just almost gone, right? You cut right up to that edge. And then you're going to do it to sort of a mirrored image of a second one. And then you just put one card over the other and slide them together until you've got, you know, the same size little notch in there. And then tape those together, front and back. And now you can do something this big if you want to.
Yeah.
You can do more cards. You can
great.
even get longer. So still really versatile.
That is really great. It is a
Yeah.
quick start, that's for sure.
It is.
So now I wanted to show you how to do add a thread on your peyote stitch. And Cheri, can I have the mat, please? And I have here, you see my thread is getting short. Thank you, Cheri. And I want to have a good length still because I need to weave that thread then after in my work. And when I stop a thread, I don't stop at the end or at the beginning. You want it to do in the middle, somewhere in the middle of your work. It's more secure. So my last bead that I added was this brown one here, and then my thread is going out to the red one. So I want to add a new thread. So I've got one here prepared, and I'm not cutting this, I'm not weaving this right now because I like to know where do I have to bring my new thread, and I know it's right here by my red beads. So I'm just gonna weave my new thread inside the beads and go out here. The way how I do it, I'm gonna start here on this red one. So I'm gonna go bottom to top, and then I'm gonna go down to the next one. And then you will think that if you go back up to the red one, it will be enough to secure your thread, but it's actually not. And look how my tail is sliding here. So you want to kind of make a cross with your thread inside, inside your beads, like that. Your beads cross, your thread is crossing and is more secure. So I'm gonna go through the blue bead and the brown bead here, like that. And then what I do is you could go down, well, I'm just gonna go down up this way, up to the blue bead.
You can really kind of go whichever direction you want,
Yes,
right? Whatever
yes.
seems
Exactly.
to be the next best move.
Exactly, and once in a while just pull on your thread and you will see if your thread is moving or not. And right now it feels pretty secure. So just, oh, you see, it slide again. I'm like, okay,
And
it's not secure enough.
and larger beads,
Right.
there's more freedom in there for those threads to move around.
Yes, so I'm gonna do that again. Okay, now it feels more secure. but I need to go back to the red bead here. So I'm gonna go through the bead on the side, go up to the red. Now my thread's gonna be really secure because I'm going through beads a lot. I'm gonna go through that blue one, and I should be able to just go down to that red bead. So the trick is just go through several beads, make sure that pull it once in a while and see if your thread is sliding. Right now I know it's really secure, nothing is moving, and then I'm ready to add another bead, and I do a couple rows before I weave that thread inside the bead here, and then I can cut it. So it is that simple to add a new thread on the peyote stitch.
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're very sorry that we have some some difficulties at the beginning, but I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you didn't subscribe to our newsletter, please do, because this is when you can see when we be our next Artbeads Cafe. And we have so many great promotion and a lot of tips through our emails. So thank you so much. Au revoir, merci, à bientôt.
Bye bye.